This audio presentation of Understanding God by Vivian May Williams, author of There Is Nothing But God, is brought to you by audioenlightenment.com. Copyright 2015, all rights reserved. Introductory, Chapter 1. In my book, There Is Nothing But God, I explain the platform of absolute truth so thoroughly that I feel any further elaboration would be superfluous. I also answered the most prevalent questions that confront students. During the short space of time that has intervened, Spirit has revealed multitudinous ideas to me from the infinite source of my own mind. Within the pages of this book, you will find some very advanced ideas which may startle you. Today I am speaking with greater authority, for I have solved a point which advanced metaphysicians have advocated but never explained. The realization of this important point automatically increased my healing power and demonstrations most perceptibly. Even my students and patients began to report greater demonstrations, and in many cases the results were instantaneous. If I be lifted up from the earth, I will draw all men unto me, Jesus. May the inspired realizations that flashed into my consciousness, and which I present to you in this book, guide you into the freedom of spirit and enable you to demonstrate the supremacy of your own mind. Sincerely, Vivian May Williams. Chapter 2. Looking Facts in the Face. Humanity is crying for peace, but apparently peace is not to be found. Time-honored methods and systems have been tried and found lacking. Even religion seems inadequate to meet the serious problems of today. No one questions the capabilities of those in charge of national affairs, and yet even they seem to be outwitted by the rapidly increasing negative conditions of the world. Is there anyone or anything on earth today that can offer a solution? Yes, the power of God that acted through the man named Jesus is just as available to each and every individual today as it was 2,000 years ago when it silenced forever the claims of sin, disease, and death through actual demonstration. The peace of God is eternally established and individualized in every living being, and is instantly available to those who look in the only place it is to be found. When each individual seeks the peace of his own mind, the whole world will be at peace, and the one mind, God, will reign supreme, for the government shall be upon his shoulder. Why does the truth seem to be practical only to the churchgoers and apparently impractical to the everyday businessman? Because clever and crafty minds have sought to commercialize the truth by organizing under the banner of religion. What is true religion but a man's understanding of the power that sustains the entire universe? I wonder how many practical men and women can define God and actually demonstrate the principles that are requisite to understanding before they can expect peace and prosperity. Those who have been entrusted with national affairs have adapted and found lacking the ideas that once proved profitable for their predecessors. Why? Because they have served the purpose of which they were intended at that particular day and age, and must be replaced with more advanced ideas. Just as the airplane has replaced the ox cart and the Victrola has given place to the radio. Why do great men hesitate when it comes to the adoption of truth in business and national affairs, as well as in their bodies and soul? Because the majority of religious leaders are such poor examples themselves of what they teach and preach. They have sought to monopolize the truth by organizing it and confining it to whatever creed or cult they satisfied their own particular lack of understanding. They have labeled their religious activity spiritual and closed the doors to the practically minded persons who are seeking a balanced activity of mind and body. No logical thinker is going to adopt a religion that keeps him in bondage to theories, stereotyped speeches, and silent meditation, while the kingdom of heaven is already at hand, awaiting the acceptance through common sense based upon facts. Just as Haman built a scaffold for Mordecai and hanged upon it himself, so is the impractical religionist defeating his own purpose because he is a house divided against itself. Today, many influential minds advocate that the only solution to world problems is religion. But let me ask you, how much peace has it contributed in the past? Jesus, who demonstrated true religion, met a felon's fate because he dared to voice the truth about himself. The path of human progress is strewn with pitiable evidence of the inhuman battle that has raged in consciousness for ages. Today, there is the same unreasoning conflict of creed, the same sectarian bitterness. John Ruskin said, "Brave men have dared to examine lies which had long been taught, not because they were such free thinkers, but because they were such stern thinkers that the lie could no longer escape them." In offering religion as a solution to world problems, there is but one that can be adapted with security, and that is a religion that will give man the freedom of his own mind. I have always contended that when the religious leaders of the world harmonize their spirituality with the world of expression, thus bringing the kingdom of heaven down to earth, where everyone prefers to find it, they will have no more difficulty in influencing the practical business person to adapt religion as a means to universal peace. There is not a person on earth who does not recognize a supreme power in some form or other. Even a savage has his concept of God. But it is human nature for a man to rebel against the outrageous forms of worship that parade in the name of religion. Because man was created a self-sustained and self-governed individual, he has a legitimate right to maintain this freedom and persistency of spirit. Furthermore, he is destined to return to his source and creator with his identity in a state of perfect preservation, because his divine heritage was established before the world began. We might compare the present world conditions with the parable of the prodigal son, for it portrays the restless state of mind that forsakes its true source of existence and seeks the substance of all things in the world of appearance, only to meet with defeat. The following verses are recorded in St. Luke 15. And not many days after the younger son gathered all together, and took his journey into a far country, and there wasted his substance with riotous living. And when he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in that land, and he began to be in want. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed the swine. And he would fain have filled his belly with the husks that the swine did eat, and no man gave unto him. And when he came to himself, he said, How many hired servants of my father's have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and will say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him, and had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck, and kissed him. And the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. But the father said to his servants, Bring forth the best robe, and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand, and shoes on his feet. And bring hither the fatted calf, and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead, and is alive again. He was lost, and is found, and they began to be merry. Now his eldest son was in the field, and as he came and drew nigh to the house, he heard music and dancing, and called one of his servants, and asked what these things meant. And he said unto him, Thy brother is come, and thy father hath killed the fatted calf, because he hath received him safe and sound. And he was angry, and would not go in. Therefore came his father out, and entreated him. And he answering said to his father, Lo, these many years do I serve thee, neither transgressed I at any time thy commandment, and yet thou never gavest me a kid, that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as this son was come, which hath devoured thy living with harlots, thou hast killed for him the fatted calf. And he said unto him, Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine. It was meet that we should be merry and be glad, for this thy brother was dead and is alive again, and was lost and is found. Dear readers, the Bible is still our greatest guide to security, because it is the history of the evolution of man's consciousness from the first conception of himself as a separate selfhood to the final destruction of every belief that is tributary to such a false premise. We can draw a parallel between the actions of the prodigal and the riotous living that prevails today. We are just beginning to witness the mighty famine in a land that is inevitably extravagant living and spending. Just as the son of a rich father was willing to eat husks with the swine, and no man gave unto him, so there are millions today who are not only willing, but are literally eating husks, because they lacked wisdom in the past. But the prodigal's humility rescued him from depression. It enabled him to admit his own faults and to recognize the source of his supply and happiness, and so he returned to his father. Instead of meeting with rebuke, he was received with love and compassion, an abundance of fine raiment, food, and pleasure was his without asking the very moment he contacted his father. It was not necessary for him to leave his primal source in order to indulge in riches and pleasure. It was only necessary for him to appreciate his present possessions. But he had become enmeshed in his own wrong thinking, and was misled by the world of appearances. He was dead to his father because he was not functioning from the true source of being, the omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient source of his individual mind. The father's reply to his angry brother is symbolic of the persistency of spirit in sustaining and supporting its creation regardless of apparent mistakes. The manifest world is a house divided against itself, which is rapidly being brought to desolation because its individuals have become mentally disorganized. Each one is functioning from the basic belief of life and matter, from the belief in separate egos, rather than from an understanding of the one ego, God. It is utterly impossible to unite individuals in a collective consciousness of peace until each individual realizes his individual completeness as the true image of God and bases his thoughts and actions upon this changeless fact. It is quite obvious that prayers have not been uttered from the basic principle that Jesus recognized. Otherwise, the world would not be witnessing such demonstration of hatred, revenge, malice, greed, crime, sin, disease, jealousy, monopoly, self-righteousness, and personal power. The mental battle of Armageddon is raging throughout the entire world. It is a battle between truth and error, and the victory of truth is inevitable. The chemicalization of mortal thoughts, foreseen by the great Nazarene prophet, as it is recorded in the 24th chapter of St. Matthew, is being witnessed today in human experience. Those who are wise enough to discern the signs of the times are laying up treasures in heaven or consciousness, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. They are losing no time in fortifying their thinking against the apparent negative forces so prevalent today. Such thinkers have no cause for alarm, for they are building their mental structures upon the rocks of spiritual understanding, against which the winds of deception and ignorance cannot prevail. Why is it so essential to understand the nature and origin of yourself? Because it is the only haven of peace to which you can retire from the depressed consciousness of the world. It is the Father to which the prodigal returned. The wise man is following the good judgment of the way shower, who said, I must work the works of him that sent me. While it is day, the night cometh when no man can work. Unless one makes an effort to understand God, and does his mental work while the world is yet comparatively peaceful, he may experience a time when the negative forces will attack the world so furiously that no man can work. Then suffering is inevitable. This is not improbable in lieu of the fulfilled prophecies and those predestined to happen. Individuals with clear vision will not only protect themselves and be at peace during troubled times, but they will also be able to protect and comfort those who, like the foolish virgins, did not keep their lamps trimmed and filled with oil. A man of great vision gave us a secret to peace of God that passes all understanding when he said, The kingdom of God is within you. Why seek elsewhere? Chapter 3. Healing Yourself. How long has it been since you took inventory of yourself? And why you delayed subjecting yourself to the constructive criticism so necessary in the exposure of the apparent negative causes that seem to retard your progress? As reluctant as you may be to admit it, there is but one legitimate cause for delay, and that is because your mind rebels against the thorough analysis it must necessarily undergo before you can ever experience peace. It is human nature to seek self-justification and to look for alibis, but there is one fact that no individual can escape, and that is he is dealing with no one but himself. Yes, I know there's an appearance of an outside world inhabited by millions of people, but where does this world and these people exist to you? Can you actually prove that there is anyone beside yourself with a mind of his own when everything in the universe is your own mental conception? Have you ever experienced a single thing of which you are not conscious? It is often a comforting alibi for your own failure to look away from yourself and judge the apparent other fellow, but this does not alter the fact that the weak points you are pointing out in an effort to excuse yourself are still negative conceptions lurking in your own mind. Judge not that ye be not judged. For which that judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged, and with what measure ye mete, it shall be measured to you again. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but consider not the beam that is in their own eye? Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, Let me pull out the mote out of thy eye, and behold, a beam is in thy own eye? Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thy own eye, and thou shalt you see clearly to cast out the mote of thy brother's eye. These words of Jesus the Christ were based upon scientific laws of life. He not only talked the truth about God, but he lived in compliance with the power of universal good, which he knew was available to him, and which is equally available to every individual today. This master thinker knew that one cannot judge the other fellow without experiencing the judgment in his own mind. He knew that whatever measure an individual attempts to mete out, he is destined to have it measured back to him, for he is dealing with the reflections projected from his own mind. The mote that is in thy brother's eye is there only because you project it in the same manner that a moving picture is projected upon the screen. The evil conditions that are convulsing the world today are nothing more nor less than self-imposed mesmerism brought about by the belief in separate human egos. The man-made laws of any nation are but so many infringements upon man's individual freedom, and this statement includes the bylaws of every church organization. Nations will rise against nations. Politicians will seek place in power in religious circles, as well as commercial. Stock markets will rise and fall. Money will dominate. The government will build larger institutions to house disease and crime, rather than eliminating them from the face of the earth, until each individual is taught the virtue and power of his own mind. This is the only way in which one can find everlasting security. The time has come when each individual must let his own light shine and not continue to hide under the bushel of some revered leader, author, or organization. You may be a most sincere student, but if you are depending upon any power other than your own mind, you are building your mental structure upon sand. Do not be alarmed, then, if your universe is disturbed. Because the average reader is not a logical thinker, it is necessary to remind him of the metaphysical discrepancies that retard his progress. As the absolute truth about yourself enters your consciousness, it dispels all problems just as the presence of light automatically dispels darkness. As long as one believes that 2 times 2 equals 5, he can never solve a mathematical problem. If one should make this mistake in multiplication, it is not necessary for him to resort to long discourse about mathematics. He has but to remind himself that 2 plus 2 equals 4, and he has instantly overcome the error. Furthermore, the mere denial of an erroneous belief, whether it is financial, physical, or otherwise, does not solve the problem. You cannot deny anything out of existence. The error ceases to exist when you replace it by the truth, for there are no vacuums in mind. When disease is replaced by health, you cease to be ill. Abundance causes lack to vanish, and discord gives way to harmony, as laboriously as light dispels darkness. How many of you have failed to demonstrate the things you desire and need? Did it ever occur to you that you must first have something to prove before you can demonstrate it? A repetition of spiritual rules without an understanding of the principle, God, upon whom they are based, will never result in demonstration. Unless your arguments of truth are based upon facts, they become sounding brass and tinkling cymbal. Faith is but a stepping stone. Understanding is requisite to gain results. God is not to be constantly approached and pleaded with as though you had been separated from him. You must prove your uninterrupted and eternal communion with him through demonstration. You are not expected to demonstrate over disease, but you are compelled to prove the persistency of health which constitutes wholeness and completeness. Spirit does not require you to overcome lack before you can partake of its abundance. It requires you to prove the presence of its riches now. We need not overcome the world of illusion in order to find heaven, but we are being called upon to prove that Christ is in our midst today, as he was 2,000 years ago. Jesus did not overcome sin, disease, and death by performing miracles. He merely applied the natural mental laws of life and proved the supremacy of his own mind over illusion. The grave was nothing in comparison to the persistency of eternal life, and he proved it. Whenever you solve a problem in arithmetic, you prove your understanding of mathematics. In like manner, when you solve a problem of life through the application of spiritual rules, you prove the power and persistency of your own divine principle. When metaphysicians give less concern to mortal mind and the numerous imaginary problems accredited to its creation, and more consideration to the absolute truth about this spiritual man with whom we are in constant contact, the kingdom of heaven will be found here on earth. In this third degree of divine understanding, mortal mind disappears, and man, as God's image, appears. It is possible for metaphysicians to dwell so much upon the nothingness of mortal mind and evil that they become mesmerized by the very beliefs they wish to overcome, to the extent that they become blind leaders of the blind. And if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into the ditch. A most prevalent question is, where did all this illusion of the senses begin, and where will it end? The answer is quite simple. The only fall of man came about when his thoughts about himself descended from a spiritual basis to a belief of life and matter. The only place this illusion can end is in your own consciousness, and the only time required for the consummation is dependent upon your ability to reinstate yourself in your own consciousness. Chapter 4. Self-Confidence. It does not require the wisdom of a sage, long discourse on ancient mysticism, nor stereotyped speeches of modern metaphysics to prove that you have a mind. It is so obvious that no amount of reasoning can ever alter this fact. Have you ever wondered where the spiritual mind originated, and who is responsible for the mortal mind, in lieu of the argument that there is but one mind? Have you attempted to solve this great riddle by thinking that your spiritual or divine mind is responsible for the good thoughts, and that your supposititious mortal mind conceives all of the evil? Did it ever occur to you that your own mind is responsible for both concepts of spirituality and materiality? For it is your own mind that you form your concepts of spirit and matter. It will simplify matters for you greatly if you will realize that the word spiritual means mental. Therefore, a spiritual being is a mental being that lives, moves, and has its being in the one mind, God. You are a mental, spiritual being now, because the only thing about you that is tangible and everlasting is your mind. Why do you question the nature of your own mind when it is quite evident that Spirit created it out of its pure mind substance? Since matter is really spirit and reflection, why should you rebel at being termed a material man, or be concerned if your mind is labeled material? Common sense tells you that spirit could never create a man or mind contrary to its own nature, so why not clear up these illusions once and for all and be ready for demonstration? Spirit and matter will always be at warfare as long as individuals give power to both conceptions. The most logical attitude to adapt, if you wish to make uninterrupted progress, is to discard both terms, namely spiritual and material, and resolve to deal with the one mind with which you are very familiar, namely your own mind. Perhaps you believe that you are a sinning mortal man living in a world of evil influence, but someday your prayers will be answered and you will find yourself in heaven. But the process of deliverance is quite the reverse. You are a spiritual being in heaven now, and all that you need to do in order to enjoy the freedom of the kingdom is to think your way out of the hell which you have created through the acceptance of false beliefs about yourself and God. In 1935, I issued a course of lessons entitled The Elect's Bulletin, in which I gave out some very inspired and advanced ideas. The following is a reprint from Lesson 7. Last month, I was giving oral instructions in San Jose, California. In order to impersonalize my message, I never look at my students while teaching them. I listen to my own voice as intently as they do in order to hear the ideas coming direct from the divine mind. I was thrilled beyond all expectation when I heard myself say this: there is but one in bondage, and that one is God. Does this seem an impossibility? Let me explain. We say God is all and in all. If this is a fact, then God, good, is all that can be in bondage. In bondage to what? Our own false beliefs. To begin with, God is not a person. God is good itself. Health is good. Health is a bondage to a belief in disease. Wealth is good, and it is in bondage to a belief of poverty. Space will not permit me to call attention to the numerous beliefs that hold good, God in bondage. You can reason them out for yourself. Did not man's ignorance of electricity hold light in bondage for centuries? Since God is all, there are no separate personalities to be in bondage. Reason is our guide to truth. Let us use it to its fullest capacity. The moment you realize the truth of this advanced idea, your thought reverts to God, good, instead of yourself. The instant you think of God being in bondage, your reason reverses the belief, and freedom takes place without having to resort to systems or practices of any sort. Do you not see that this idea will keep your mind stayed on God instead of yourself and your affairs? It will enable you to be absent from the body and present with the Lord. Your righteous indignation over the very idea that false beliefs are holding God in bondage and preventing good from expressing the desires of your heart will cause you to be more alert, and the best of you will be dealing with the sense of one instead of the sense of two. When you deal with reality God, you make progress. But when you deal with a suppositional person, your prayers are in vain. Since God includes all manifestations, your business, finance, domestic life, bodies, love, affairs, and all manifestations are within God. Clear perception that God is not in bondage releases the mental belief that your affairs are in jeopardy. Since I advocate individual expression, I am happy to say this idea is absolutely original with me. Work out your own salvation does not mean to surrender your ideas to the opinion of others. Your ideas are just as reliable and equally valuable to those presented by Jesus, for Spirit is the only thinker. Chapter 5. Finding a Practical God. Author's note: the flashes of inspiration contained in the last 3 chapters may be used as treatment or true prayer. Do not merely read them as statements of truth, but contemplate every word as an idea emanating from divine intelligence, which is understanding itself, outside of the body, where Spirit speaks to man. Question: When one has devoted a number of years to the study and practice of truth, what is the reason for lack of demonstration? The answer is to this question may be summed up in these words. Because they pray to an unknown God, depend upon man-made concepts, and do not contact reality, the average truth student is negative instead of positive. The proof of this is in observing the majority who petition God and constantly expect Him to become that which He already is. Each and every individual must realize that the word God is a term used to denote universal good, good in evidence everywhere. When the average person affirms God is good, he has a sense of God as a supernatural being who is good to everyone. This belief alone will cause a person to depend upon an unknown God and make him dependent instead of independent. We have been given dominion over the earth and must learn to assert our freedom. Right here, let me remind you of the most important point in metaphysics. You are dealing with no power, person, place, or thing outside of yourself. Therefore, know thyself. All terms which are used to denote God were conceived by man. Therefore, to constantly depend upon them is to depend upon the intellect or the letter instead of the spirit. As shocking as it may seem to the human sense, I am compelled, through demonstration, to assure you that a constant dependence upon the term God deprives you of the demonstration of reality. You must do more than lean upon God. You must realize His very essence, and then you can truly affirm, I and my Father are one. As long as you look away from your own individualized power, you cannot claim that you are God-governed. God must be found within you, and then universal good is as much an established fact as 2 times 2 is 4. Metaphysics has taught individuals to constantly turn away to God in heaven, and in so doing they have been led away in consciousness from the kingdom of heaven within. The term Father is used to denote the source of all being. If I were asked to prove that the Father is within me, this would be my answer, because I know that I am alive. The very fact that I'm alive is proof that life is my only presence, for without life I would not be here, hence I would have no presence. Because I have a mind or consciousness is proof that in life there is divine mind intelligence. Because I have love is another proof that life is love. Life is perfect principle or continuity. Life must be soul individualization, otherwise we would not see it perfectly preserved in all forms of nature. Life is spirit because life is the essence and quality of the whole universe, including man. Life is animation, all activity. Life is the underlying power of reality. Life enables me to write these lessons, and life enables you to read my words. Life was never created, hence life is God good. Look about you and observe nature. Let us take a sturdy oak tree as an illustration. Can you not see the evidence of life itself? Its form or identity is soul and evidence. The whole idea bears witness to the intelligent direction of mind which is included in the life of the tree. Love is the incentive that caused mind to direct its own power of life through soul identity into manifestation man. Analyzing everything from the basis of life itself is to enter into the spirit that giveth life, but a constant dependence upon the terms used to denote God is to look to the letter that killeth. This is my answer to why many do not demonstrate. Since life is God, or universal good, I decided to replace the word God with life, and my demonstrations increased tremendously. Let me emphasize this fact, that looking to God may cause you to look away from your demonstrations unless you have a true concept of good, whereas looking to life causes you to consciously contact reality or the kingdom within you. You cannot repeat the word life without feeling a sense of inspiration and activity. Unless you are animating your ideas and desires with life, they remain dead, and issues in you will always lack. Everything you desire to demonstrate is included in life, the spirit, essence, and quality of your being living. Therefore, you must enter into the spirit of life, and be as concentrated upon the Father life within, as the light bulb is concentrated when it is giving light, or the oak tree when it is revealing life. A child never learns to walk alone, nor depends upon life for support, until it is encouraged to let go of the many things to which it has been clinging. Likewise, truth students never learn that they are the true image of life, self-sustained, self-maintained, and self-governed, until they learn to depend upon the power of life within themselves, which is the only true God our Father. You will find that every problem will be perfectly solved when you realize that the life within you is the eternal answer. The very fact that you can say, I have a mind and body, is proof that you are greater than both, and that the power of life which enables you to declare this is your real self. By all means, discard all your theories in the dead letter and enter into the spirit of life if you want to see activity expressed in all of your affairs. Realize that the identical power that holds the planets in space is that which you are. The power that creates every perfect flower, tree, diamonds, rubies, gold, silver, and every manifestation is the same power that flows through your veins as blood. This realization of oneness causes you to harmonize yourself with the manifest universe and gives you a realization of possession rather than one of lack. I gave this realization to 3 persons who had believed in paralysis, and the result was instantaneous movement. By their fruits ye shall know them. Do not make a theory of these words, but practice the presence of life, and you will be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Life fulfills its own laws, therefore all action is perfect. Keep your mind centered on the source of all action, and you will be attuned to God. Life unfolds and reveals itself in action. It gives without any sense of receiving, for giving and receiving are one in God. God gives to himself by means of man. Thus he receives that which he gives. The same law applies to individuals. Life is now in action, creating and forming money in abundance for my use and satisfaction. Life is flowing abundantly through my conscious idea of money, revealing itself in tangible form. The realization of a perfect bowel action. Life is all action. Life created your bowels through its own perfect action, and for this reason your bowel action must be normal because it is life itself in action. Belief is nothing, and nothing has no power. Therefore the belief in inactivity cannot interfere with life's activity. Since bowel action is the action of life itself, it is perfect. One must look for bowel action in life's action. Understanding reveals that there can be no inaction in all action, which is life. The truth is that your bowels are acting perfectly because of the fact that they are life in action. The bowels of themselves do not act any more than the light bulb gives you light without electricity. But knowing that your bowels are included in life itself fulfills the divine purpose of activity despite any false belief to the contrary. One may be conscious of the truth and yet have no consciousness of the truth. Consciousness is the medium through which life expresses itself. Life created hearing by hearing. Life created seeing by seeing. Life created feeling by feeling. Life created smelling by smelling. Life created tasting by tasting. These are your spiritual senses. Life itself gives man the power to become aware of life, so the individual must use this power or consciousness to bear witness to life and its manifestations, instead of trying to bring about certain conditions and circumstance. Here is a realization that healed paralysis. Life cannot circulate through one part of being without circulating through the whole of creation, for life is eternally revealing its wholeness and completeness. Life never created half a universe. It proves itself holy. There can be no inaction in life, for life is all action. Affirm, I love life. All objects are ideas in life, therefore they are circulating in action. If we want to express life in all of our affairs, we must realize that all objects are animated by life. Since we are life in action, we can only contact objects when we realize that they too are life in action. Chapter 6, Your True Identity. As long as you look away to God as a supreme being apart from yourself, you will experience lack, for you are looking away from your source of supply. When man realizes that he is God individualized, he will understand why the pronoun he, used to denote God, must also apply to the individualized image. Since the I or self of you is God, you are dealing only with yourself when you depend upon God. All you need be concerned about is your conception of yourself. Understanding that you are God in substance sets you free from all belief in a separate selfhood. There is no lack in such a realization. By uniting yourself with Spirit God, you unite yourself with every other self. Hence, there is no one to oppose, condemn, hate, criticize, compete with, be jealous of, or to depend upon. When you realize that you are the only one in the universe, you will readily see there is no other one to oppose you. As infinite substance, you cannot become separated from yourself, hence abundance is a present reality. There are no separate personalities. When you hear yourself declaring, I am, I do, I hear, I see, I smell, I taste, I feel. You are actually listening to the great I Am, declaring its own powers and capacity by means of man, who is its individualized consciousness. God acts by means of his spiritual selves or ideas. Mind is God, good. You are eternally in touch with your own mind. Therefore, your own mind is your omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent God. You must control the concept of yourself as a human being and make the body or manifestation which you believe you are obey the Christ or power of God, which is your real self. You are not body, you are power. Your body stands in the same relationship to God power as the radio stands to the ether. Just as the radio waves cause the reception on the radio, so does your Christ power bring all good God to your bodily instrument. Your manifestation is in proportion to your recognition of your own God power. Man is God manifested in form. Man is mind made visible to itself. Your body is life made visible. Soul is God. Body is man. The I of you is soul. Your body is the manifestation of your I. When you understand that you are the I or soul, your body or manifestation will express the perfection of the power that governs it. You are not merely a channel of God. You are actually God in manifestation. You are not merely a spiritual being, but you are the manifestation or differentiator of substance itself. God, mind, thinks. Its thinking is man. Man, being God's thinking, is mind in action. Mind's thinking man is in immediate possession of the power that causes him to think. Thus man possesses all of God, good. God, mind, possesses all of its own thinking, which is man or all manifestation. I and my Father are one means mind and its activity are one and the same thing. You are not a separate being, but you are distinct soul or I with complete identity and the full Christ power of God. Affirm, I am my universal self. You are not only alive, but you are the consciousness of life itself. You are the Christ and the master of your universe or manifestation. By placing your body or form secondary to you, the Christ or God power, you will be seen as the Word made flesh. Your thoughts and actions will be commensurate with the Christ which you are right now. Man is God's witness to his creation. Man is the consciousness by means of which God sees his own manifestation. You are not body. You are the power which enables you to be aware of yourself. You are greater than the mind or body, for you can say, I have a mind, I have a body. You are spirit and quality. The life of Jesus was based upon the understanding of his own mind, and mind is God. Therefore, the life of Jesus was good or God. God is the life from which you sprang. Therefore, you are a seed sown in perfection and must reap perfection. Each individual reflects the whole of God in the same sense that each sun ray reflects the whole sun. One's expression is limited only by his inability to conceive this fact. By realizing you are hid with Christ in God, your mind serves as the reflector for life to review or witness its own manifestation. You do not have to strive to improve yourself any more than a rose has to strive to add color, beauty, outline, and perfume to itself. But you do have to get rid of the false thoughts you may be entertaining about your perfect self. The spirit of life within you never denies the spirit of life in manifest form. Therefore, God and his manifestations are one spirit. I and my Father are one. Father, power. I, my soul, or the Father's individual consciousness. My body, man or manifestation, the means by which soul expresses the Father or primal element of being. Let us make man in our image and likeness. The us is principle, an idea creating all manifestation, man, by means of the image and likeness, the spiritual idea held in mind. This same creative process in God is eternally individualized by means of the I or soul of each individual. If a tree could speak, you would hear life say, I am a tree, I have a trunk. Life is your only presence, for if you were not alive, you would not be present. Man is the consciousness of life itself, which is all power. Therefore, man has choice to direct this power to fulfill every desire. You are one with God in reality, but if you wish to demonstrate this fact, you must get equally as close to him in consciousness. Affirm, the pure Spirit of God power within my consciousness causes me to be aware of its presence. God power is impersonal. but when you become aware of it, it individualizes itself and becomes you. Chapter 7. Messages from the Soul. Individuals often wonder why they do not demonstrate the things for which they pray. Since all things are within your consciousness, you must first find this truth before you are able to prove you have found it. You have no demonstration to make, but life has everything to reveal to your consciousness. Let life unfold its ideas to you as laboriously as it unfolds a rose. Desires are like photographs of realities. Desires are spiritual announcements of the fulfillment which are hid with Christ and God. Desire is the activity of God's will. When you have a desire, immediately approach the answer or fulfillment which is in life itself, disregarding all belief and lack of possession, and you will have the reality revealed or demonstrated. All things are seeking you, for things are ideas in mind. God's ideas or emanations are eternally seeking man's consciousness for expression or fulfillment. Ideas originate in God and come from God to man. Since the self of you is God, you can truly say, "I thank thee, Father," before you have appeared to receive, for in reality you are in complete possession of all good or God. When you think of anything that implies good, you are in immediate touch with the kingdom within. Adjust the dials of your mental radio and tune in on the power which you call God. Let this infinite power manifest the riches of its kingdom through its own individual consciousness, which you are. Make your atonement with all manifestation, and you will never lack any good thing. You are good itself, so you need not make your atonement with God. But you do have to acknowledge your manifestation as your creation. Claim it and act as though it were your possession now. You have no problems to work out, for you live in God, who is the answer to every problem. Become fully conscious of the eternal presence of the answer, and all apparent problems will cease their imaginary existence. None of God's ideas are invisible, for God sees through perception. The only eyesight is spiritual understanding. When you can close your eyes and declare, "I see," in the invisible, you will manifest these same ideas to visible eyesight. Because I am the image of good itself, I have the creative power to manifest anything I desire. Desire is a spiritual demand, which announces eternal fulfillment. An image in mind is an immediate object of understanding, because there is no time or space between an idea and its form. Affirm, "I am the immediate manifestation of infinite and eternal good or God." The sun individualizes itself as rays, and the rays manifest light and heat. God individualizes himself as man, the embodiment of all good, and it is man's purpose to express or manifest the power of all good in his daily life. Do not wait upon God to act, but harmonize your mind with this power of good which is always acting. Let your good deeds be witnessed as God in action. We do not have to test or experiment with God's power. It is always acting and never fails to fulfill every idea. Since God's ideas are self-created, they carry no doubt or fear. Spiritual discernment indicates that spirit is discerning its own ideas. When you realize that the I, or God of you, is the power that enables you to think, you will realize that when your mind has conceived an idea, you have actually received the thing itself. Conscious awareness of the thing desired is a demonstration or proof of the power of your mind. Objects are not inanimate. They are living ideas in mind, God. Until you realize they are alive and spiritual, you cannot demonstrate them, for the belief in matter will appear to separate you from them. Since you are spiritual, you must see all things as spiritual manifestations. By taking this spiritual attitude, you make your atonement with God's creation and overcome the belief in separation from the things you desire. Faith in the power of God to fulfill its own inherent laws will manifest the substance of things hoped for. Let God think for you by realizing that the wisdom or power of good within you is greater than the mind that thinks. False beliefs cannot interfere with God's thinking, for God is thinking you eternally. You will continue to deny all inharmonious conditions until you realize the nothingness of evil. You cannot experience peace of mind as long as you carry on a mental warfare between truth and error. Instead of constantly watching your thoughts, watch your actions, since thoughts are invisible, and you may be at a loss to know what detrimental thoughts you may be entertaining. It is wise to take note of your actions. Correct your actions if necessary, and you will automatically adjust your thoughts. It is easier to stop acting than to stop thinking. As long as one believes in error, he will experience error. To believe in good only is to experience eternal good, for good has no opposing power. Man is destined to advance spiritually despite appearances. Natural science evidences this fact, for man is constantly conceiving ideas which contribute to the advancement of the universe. Spirituality is a mentality filled with truth. Individuals who do not demonstrate their spirituality or pure Christ mind are those who believe in human flesh and a human mind. This divisible sense is a kingdom divided against itself, which is brought to desolation, hence the apparent confusion in their lives. There is a difference between ignoring a negative condition and seeing its nothingness. The former indicates one's inability to handle it, whereas the latter is based upon understanding. When one sees a nothingness of that which seems to oppose God, he admits his Christ power to transcend the situation. The Christ can penetrate the body in your affairs just as the radio waves penetrate the walls, for the body is as mental as mind itself. The same power that sustains the planets in space and keeps all good and divine order is operating for each individual now. Since this law is infinite action, there is no place where it is not in operation. Realize this and overcome the belief in time. God is never late in demonstrating himself. Love is the aspect of God that causes ideas to unfold to mind. Love is the fulfilling of the law, for without ideas there would be no manifestation. God, mind, conceives ideas and presents them to its individualized consciousness, man. Since these ideas never leave the God consciousness or man, it is true that man is eternally in possession of God's wealth. Man cannot control, but God can and does by means of man. God's work is done. You can do nothing of yourself. When you realize this fully, you will see God at work by means of you. Fear is misplaced faith. Fear is a false conception. Since you are greater than your conceptions, you can conquer fear. Depression is the result of depending upon the human sense or world of appearances. Problems entered the world in the same sense that mathematical problems entered your book of arithmetic when you first started to school. Ignorance of the truth about mathematics seemed to create problems. Understanding is the solution. If you admit that evil has existence, you actually admit that a lie can be true. The only chance a lie has to operate is to have someone believe it is the truth. A lie being nothing cannot create negative conditions, which one may call something. A lie being illusion cannot create realities. Its apparent creations are as illusory as the dream sense that believes in its erroneous conceptions. It is the human or illusory sense that needs changing, not your body or affairs. In order to demonstrate harmony, you must actually see yourself as you desire to be. Your desire indicates your position in reality. The belief in matter is like a counterfeit bill. A counterfeit bill has all the appearance of the genuine and yet has no value. Since it really is not a bill, why worry about it? Man is not material, so why worry over materiality? When things seem to go wrong, that is an indication they must be all right, for all lies are based upon the truth. Sin, disease, and death are experiences of an illusory mind, but they never interfere with the continuity of man's spirituality. Individuals are not demonstrating their spirituality or pure Christ consciousness because they believe in human flesh and a human mind. This sense of two is a kingdom divided which is brought to desolation. As long as one believes in both good and evil, he will have confusion in his daily experience. This is the difference between ignoring a condition and seeing through its deception. The former merely prolongs it, whereas the latter is the truth that sets you free. When the sun is obscured by clouds, we never say it is ill and unable to shine. And when the clouds disperse, we never say the sun has improved and is again expressing itself. Nothing has interfered with the sun, and when the clouds disperse themselves, we witness the sun in all of its glory. The sun is not conscious of its obscurity when hidden by clouds, any more than the spiritual eye or soul of us can be conscious of problems. When you appear to be in bondage to inharmonious conditions, withdraw yourself from all false conceptions by realizing that the eye of view always transcends all manifestations. It is the spiritual man whom you hear voicing the truth. That which you merely believe may be termed the mortal or human mind, but that which you really understand is your divine mind. When your individual consciousness understands the indivisible truth, you may claim your Christ consciousness. Use the power of your mind to acknowledge truth in all manifestations, instead of dissipating your power by constantly trying to overcome problems that do not exist except in illusion. Trying to demonstrate without arousing your sense of vision is equivalent to trying to see an object with your eyes closed. You can get rid of the belief in lack, but you can never get rid of your abundant supply. Money is life in expression, for money enables you to express life. Since you are life and money is life, you are inseparable. Life and you are cause and effect. Since money and you stand in the same relationship to God as the numerals stand to the principle of mathematics, it is reasonable to assume you possess money. You are the wealth of God because you are His representative. Money is evidence of your conscious realization of this fact. You can never lose anything of which you have become aware. I am money conscious now. Substance is eternally manifesting by means of the I or soul of me, and I am conscious of my instant and eternal supply. Proof that consciousness is true vision is this. When the eyes behold an object of sense, it awakens a feeling which causes you to contemplate more than the eyes alone can see. Affirm, my mind is God's mirror into which He reflects Himself. I am that perfect reflection. Since my mind is abundance, I can only reflect abundance. End of lesson. End of book. This audio presentation of Understanding God by Vivian May Williams is brought to you by audioenlightenment.com. Copyright 2015, all rights reserved.